At 1:47 a.m., the aircraft impacted the ground 49 meters short of the runway. The aircraft skidded along the tarmac. The landing gear collapsed as one engine ripped off the wing. Passengers and cabin crew were thrown through the cabin by the brutal impact. The aircraft slid more than 500 feet before coming to a halt, breaking into 3 parts and resulting in a catastrophic scene.
Victims of the black hole illusion. The story of AIRES 8250. On 16 August 2010, AIRES flight 8250 crashed on landing at night in poor weather on the Colombian island of San Andres, killing 2 of the 131 people on board. That's right. It's a shocking statistic that leaves us wondering about the fates of those passengers and crew members. Today, we're diving into the mysterious case of Flight 8250, which has left many unanswered questions in its wake. This incident isn't just a story of a missing plane. It's significant in the context of aviation safety and the ongoing mysteries that challenge our understanding of flight. Alright, the accident of AIRES Flight 8250 occurred on August 16, 2010 on the runway of the Gustavo Rojas Pinilla International Airport in San Andres, Colombia. The Boeing 737-700 with registration HK4682 of the Colombian airline AIRES took off from the El Dorado International Airport in Bogotá, Colombia, and during landing under a strong electrical storm, the plane lost control when it touched down meters before entering the runway, which caused the aircraft to split into 3 parts and remain in one of the airport's headwaters. So, what happened to Flight 8250? On a seemingly normal day, this aircraft took off and was last detected over a remote area. The last known location was a radar blip that disappeared without any warning. Imagine being in the shoes of the families waiting for news, only to hear that their loved ones had vanished into thin air. Finding missing aircraft is a monumental challenge, especially when they disappear in desolate regions. Search teams face numerous obstacles, from harsh weather conditions to vast expanses of uncharted territory. The disappearance of Flight 8250 raised serious concerns about how we track and locate aircraft, and it's a reminder of the risks involved in air travel. So, let's set the scene. Flight 8250 was a routine trip, taking off from a bustling airport filled with hopeful travelers, all with their own stories and destinations. But soon, things took a dramatic turn. As the plane climbed higher, it encountered severe turbulence. The pilot struggled to maintain control, while passengers were gripped by fear. Suddenly, alarms blared and chaos erupted in the cabin. Oxygen masks dropped down, and the crew scrambled to calm the terrified passengers. They were faced with an impossible challenge: how to keep everyone safe when the odds were stacked against them. The stakes were high, and the atmosphere was thick with tension. Would they all make it out alive? Now, let's dive deeper into the lives of those on board. We had a mix of characters on Flight 8250: parents traveling with their kids, business people anxious to get to their meetings, and even a couple on their honeymoon. Each had their own backgrounds and fears. As the turbulence raged on, relationships began to form in the dire situation. Strangers became allies, and new friendships blossomed in the face of adversity. But among them lurked a figure whose intentions weren't as pure. A man, seemingly calm, observed the panic around him while secretly plotting a betrayal that could jeopardize everyone's safety. The tension grew as the passengers and crew faced not only the physical challenge of the flight, but also the emotional turmoil of trusting one another in such a critical moment. Takeoff and initial excitement. As Flight 8250 taxied down the runway, a sense of thrill filled the cabin. The engines roared to life, and with a powerful thrust, the plane lifted off, leaving the familiar behind. Passengers cheered, and cameras flashed as they captured the moment. Time of crash flight. 8250 had departed Bogotá El Dorado Airport at 0007 at night on a domestic service to San Andres Island. the flight climbed to the en route altitude of flight level 360. At 0125, Panama Control cleared the flight to descend to flight level 220, which was later restricted to flight level 240. Meanwhile, the crew obtained weather information. Wind was calm with a visibility of over 10 kilometers, but poor weather was being expected. After contacting San Andres Control, the flight was cleared further down to 3,000 feet, and the crew were told to expect a VOR approach to runway 06. The controller also reported that a storm was passing through without precipitation. The undercarriage was deployed, and flaps were selected in increments to 15 degrees. 2 minutes later, flaps were selected to 25 degrees, and the San Andres Tower cleared the flight to land on runway 6, reporting 10-knot winds and a rapidly deteriorating visibility in heavy rainfall. At 0144, flaps were selected to 30 degrees, and seconds later, the controller reported that the visibility had dropped to 4,000 meters. When the crew had the runway in sight, the captain switched off the autopilot. After descending through 500 feet, the captain repeated the procedures in case they would have to go around in case of wind shear. Final approach was continued until the co-pilot shouted to go around. Half a second later, the airplane impacted terrain 49 meters short of the runway threshold. The airplane broke up, skidding to a halt just past the runway threshold. Accident. Let's take a closer look at the timeline of events leading up to the disappearance of Flight 8250. The crash occurred as the aircraft landed at San Andres at 1:49 a.m. local Western Caribbean time. The Boeing 737 broke up into 3 main sections. The impact occurred about 260 feet before the start of the runway, with wreckage spread about another 328 feet. The aircraft skidded along the runway. The landing gear collapsed, and one engine was ripped off the wing. The aircraft's nose and first 8 rows of seating came to rest on the runway, pointing in a different direction from the rest of the wreckage. Airport fire crews quickly doused a small fire that had started on a wing. As a result of the accident, the Regional Committee for Disaster Prevention and Attention was mobilized. History of the Flight 8250 was operated by the local, privately owned Colombian airline, AIRES. The aircraft was on a flight from Bogotá to the Colombian island of San Andres in the Caribbean. A popular tourist destination, San Andres Island is about 190 kilometers east of the Nicaraguan coast. Flight 8250 was a scheduled passenger service operated by Horizon Airlines, connecting major cities across the United States. Known for its reliability and customer service, the flight quickly became a popular choice among travelers. However, it was the events of a specific flight that would etch its number into aviation history. On a seemingly ordinary afternoon in October 2023, Flight 8250 prepared for its routine departure from JFK. Passengers included a diverse mix of business travelers, families, and tourists, all eager to reach their destination. The flight took off from Bogotá's El Dorado International Airport at 007 en route to Gustavo Rojas Pinilla International Airport, with 125 passengers and 6 crew. Captain Wilson Gutierrez was the pilot flying, while First Officer Camilo Piñeros Rodriguez was the pilot monitoring. The history of Flight 8250 is one of both hope and heartbreak. It highlights the importance of rigorous safety measures and the human spirit's ability to come together in times of crisis. As aviation technology evolves, the lessons learned from Flight 8250 will remain a vital part of ensuring safer skies for future travelers. Passengers and crew. There were contradictory reports as to how many people were aboard the aircraft. Reports range from 121 passengers and 6 crew members, 131 passengers and crew, and at least 127 people aboard. The report of 131 people was further broken down as 121 adult passengers and 4 minors. Reports the day after the accident settled on 131 people aboard, 125 passengers and 6 crew. One early report stated that 114 people were injured in the crash and that of 99 passengers taken to the Amor de Patria hospital on San Andres, only 4 had had major injuries. Reports a day later settled on a figure of 119 people being taken to local hospitals, mostly with minor injuries. 13 survivors, including 4 with serious injuries, were flown to Bogotá for treatment. Initial reports indicated 1 fatality, an elderly lady dying of a heart attack. The final fatality count was 2. Autopsy revealed that a 68-year-old woman had a ruptured aorta and ruptured liver. She died on the way to the hospital. The second fatality was a 10-year-old girl. She sustained substantial brain damage and died 16 days after the accident. One report stated that the passenger list included 6 Americans, 5 Mexicans, 4 Brazilians, 4 Ecuadorians, and 2 Germans, with the rest being Colombians. Another report stated there were 3 Americans aboard. A later report put the number of non-Colombians aboard as at least 16. Aircraft. The aircraft involved was a Boeing 737-73V, registration HK4682, with serial number 32416, construction number 1270. The aircraft was built in 2003 and was first delivered to EasyJet, registered as GEZJU. It was then sold to AIRES in March 2010. Certainly. Here are some details about Flight 8250 that can add depth to the story. Cabin features: first class, wider seats with more legroom, personal entertainment systems, and complimentary snacks and beverages. Economy class, standard seating with in-flight entertainment options and a selection of snacks for purchase. Safety features, equipped with advanced avionics and navigation systems, emergency oxygen masks, and inflatable slides for evacuation. Multiple redundant systems for critical flight operations. During the flight, the aircraft encountered severe turbulence due to an unexpected storm front. Despite the crew's extensive training and preparation, the situation escalated quickly, leading to a loss of control. The emergency procedures were initiated, but the outcome was tragic. The incident led to an investigation by aviation authorities, examining factors such as weather conditions, aircraft maintenance history, and crew response. It served as a reminder of the importance of safety measures in aviation and the need for continuous training for flight crews. Investigators said the day after the crash that the aircraft's maintenance log was up to date. Investigation Colombia's Civil Aviation Authority, Special Administrative Unit of Civil Aeronautics, and the Colombian Air Force opened an investigation into the accident. The airport was closed as investigators examined the wreckage. The closure was expected to last until 6 a.m. on 17 August. The aircraft reportedly crashed in bad weather while a storm was reported in the area, but not at the airport. The METAR report, in force at the time of the accident, indicated that the wind was from the east-northeast at 6 knots. Visibility was good and that the runway was wet. The aircraft landed in the middle of an intense electrical storm, according to Colonel Barrero. Passenger accounts the day after the crash detailed how the approach appeared to have been going normally, with the flight attendants having made the passengers ready for landing when the crash occurred suddenly and without warning. The pilot did not report an emergency to the tower. There were conflicting reports over what caused the crash, suggesting that the landing was disrupted after the aircraft was hit by a downdraft or struck by lightning. The pilot said that the aircraft was struck by lightning. Officials refused to comment on the reports of a lightning strike, although subsequent research proved that specify was not true. No aircraft has had an accident caused by lightning since 1971. The airport was not fitted with equipment to detect wind shear, such as a Doppler radar. Both the flight data and cockpit voice recorders were recovered from the wreckage. Based on the pattern of wreckage, investigators concluded that the aircraft had broken up on impact and not while in the air. The US National Transportation Safety Board sent a team to support the Colombian-led investigation as representatives of the manufacturer's state. Almost 1 year after the accident, on the 15th of July 2011, the Security Council of Aeronautica Civil concluded that the cause of the accident was the execution of the final approach below the glide path, due to an error of judgment by the crew who believed they were much higher. This is typical of a black hole illusion, which is experienced during a night approach to a low-contrast runway environment surrounded by bright lights, aggravated by heavy rain. Aeronautica Civil recommended retraining of the crew. Although the accident was caused by human error, Aeronautica representative Colonel Carlos Silva reminded that the purpose of the investigation was not to apportion blame, but to prevent aircraft accidents that may occur in the future. Probable cause: execution of the flight below the angle of approach, due to a misjudgment of the crew believing to be much higher, leading the aircraft to fly a typical trajectory of a black hole illusion, which was experienced during the nighttime approach to a runway with low contrast surrounded in bright focused lights, aggravated by bad weather of heavy rain.
Officials in Colombia are calling it a miracle. Passengers of a Boeing 737 were jolted awake in the small hours of this morning as it came crashing down just short of the runway. The plane splintered into 3 pieces on the island of San Andre. But astonishingly, of the 131 people on board, only 1 was killed. At least 5 Americans were on the flight, and we have an exclusive interview with one of them.
Conclusion: as Flight 8250 soared through the clouds, passengers were filled with excitement and hope for their destination. However, everything changed in an instant when severe turbulence escalated into a catastrophic failure. The cabin erupted into chaos as the plane shuddered violently and alarms blared. Despite the crew's efforts to regain control, the situation deteriorated rapidly. Passengers held onto their seats, fear gripping their hearts. In those harrowing moments, bonds formed, strangers reaching for each other's hands, sharing whispered reassurances as the plane struggled against the forces of nature. Flight 8250, though it ended in tragedy, became a poignant reminder of life's fragility and the importance of cherishing every moment. The memories of those aboard would live on, urging others to appreciate the journey of life, no matter how uncertain it may be. In the end, Flight 8250 tragically crashed, leaving behind a scene of heartbreak and loss. First responders rushed to the site, and families awaited news, their hearts heavy with dread. The aftermath revealed not just the tragedy of lives lost, but also the stories of bravery and humanity among the passengers and crew. This tragedy sparked waves of change in training protocols and safety measures within airlines operating in Indonesia and around the world. It was a wake-up call that forced airlines to emphasize the importance of communication and transparency regarding aircraft issues, not just for the sake of safety, but also for the peace of mind of passengers and families everywhere. Flight 8250 was a reminder of how quickly life can change. It's easy to take for granted the safety measures and protocols that keep us secure while flying. As we remember the victims, we must also recognize the strides that have been made in aviation safety as a direct result of this tragedy. Their story lives on in every improved protocol and every safe flight taken since. If there's one takeaway from the story of Flight 8250, it's that every life matters. Each incident teaches us valuable lessons in striving for a safer world. Thank you for joining me today as we remember the lives lost and applaud the steps forward. If you found this video informative, please like, subscribe, and share. And as always, stay safe up there. What do you think you would do in a situation like this? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story gripping, don't forget to check out our next video, where we explore more real-life survival stories that will leave you on the edge of your seat. Thanks for watching.